We were looking at the Apollo 15 drogue for the stand-up EVA. And what happened was we didn't think that it would have been able to take it down from the inside, except when we looked in the PDF diagrams, you can take it down from the inside because there's a pull handle on it that releases the 3 tabs from the outside. So they pull it and down it comes. And I have one of Collins doing it while they're supposedly around the moon because they have to get these things ready to go down there, and then the drogue has to be there in the limb before they come back up again.
Right.
Now, I had a look on Apollo 15, and the drogue was in place when they docked. They had to replace that when they were on the lunar surface, so to speak, right? They had to change that while they were there because they had to put the drogue back from the inside and push it up and then push the little mechanism back in. And here's the thing that we found interesting was that you take a look at the probe. That's the thing with those 3 shocks on it that they push up to grab the drogue with from the inside of the command module. But here's the funny thing. When they use the drogue to pull it out of the LEM, so here they are, they're in orbit around the Earth. They have to go out, then they have to turn the CSM around, go back, pick the LEM up and pull it out. They need the probe for that. So it's already there. It goes in like this, locks on. But here's the thing. There's 4 charges in those cylinders. And the cylinders go like this. They've got 5,000 psi worth of nitrogen gas in them. And that expands the probe. But it's a one-time use only. So they brought extras along with them to replace so they can change them. The funny thing is that it shows that in the diagrams in the PDF, but you don't hear that in the transcripts. You don't see them changing those in the transcripts. Here's another problem. Not only are they not in the transcripts, what happens now when that drogue is on the surface of the moon? Now these guys have to take it down. So they have to go up into the hatch, pull that release. When they pulled the release and it started moving around, why didn't it cold weld itself to the hatch?
Exactly.
That's what you were saying. Remember you sent me that email back and you were asking that question. Well, then you think it would have cold welded itself to that inner hatch when they released those clamps.
Yeah, exactly.
They would have welded to the clamps.
Yeah. There wasn't any protection coated onto the metals to prevent cold welding. Because we're always being told that Teflon is something that was invented by the space race stuff. But does Teflon stop cold welding? I think we should be told.
Yeah, here's the diagram here.
Nitrogen pressure.
And it has the forged nitrogen gas bottles on it. They use a charge to release them. So it's one-time use only. They have to replace this to be able to reuse the drogue the second time. This is what fires to pull the arms out to actually lock it into place. It shows how it works. It's showing a cone here, but in the top of these cones, it has the capture latches. It just shows a thing there. They come out and just curve backwards. There's some other diagrams here of it, how it operates. The charge pushes this out, locks it into the drogue collar itself. When it comes on, it shows all of the different details, very detailed.
But there's another thing. When we look at the animation and we compare that with one of the actual clips that is inserted into that animation, there's something that is interesting is that it does show that from inside of the CM, they push the drogue out into the LEM first, and then they push the probe into it. That's why we thought that it had to go that way. But then we look at this diagram, show the handle, Scott, where they pull that tab on the drogue and it releases it from the other side. And they thought of everything.
The handles are right here.
And that's where they use to grab it and reinsert it.
But they have to reach way up to here to release it to be able to bring it in.
Yeah, imagine doing that with gloves on.
There's where they have to actually reach to, up in there to release it. That's to bring it down. And of course, they can just push it back into place to kind of spring load it. But that one handle is supposed to release all 3.
Yeah. See, latch handle reference. That's from the side that they're down on, and then they're going to just reach up and pull it on Apollo 15, and down the drogue comes.
Yeah, so they can actually put this in the command module, or they can put it in the LEM. and it seems to fit through there. And this is all on the other side, and I don't know how you can get that through. All of these are where the probe itself are attached to. And then, of course, once it locks it in, then this ring has to turn a little bit to lock it into place.
See what it says there? The lunar module hatch is not removable, but is hinged to open 75 degrees into the lunar module crew compartment.
Yes, and in the pictures, you see it open 90 degrees.
Yeah, but if it's not removable, it's going to obstruct anybody trying to get through the lunar module tunnel.
Well, you're not going through there with a PLSS on.
Well, that's even worse because the PLSS is bigger than the hatch diameter.
Yeah.
The hatch diameter is about 24 inches, unless we can find information that confirms the actual width of the lunar module tunnel.
Well, then you actually have the images in Apollo 11 of them going through there.
Yeah. So when they move from the command module into the lunar module, are they in their spacesuits, or do they put theirs on when they get into the lunar module?
No, they're just in their flight suits in these ones.
Being in flight suits, they're probably able to get through the tunnel, but not with a spacesuit on.
Yeah, but they are claiming that they had that umbilical connected. But then when you look at some of these images that artists do, they're wearing the PLSS.
Exactly.
Which is impossible.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, there's the rock boxes that they had.
Oh, yeah, look, undamaged.
Yeah, fully under 10 to the minus 11 vacuum in that rock box.
Yes, a harder vacuum than anything could be achieved on Earth.
Yeah, and that thing would simply collapse. There it is, I'm taking it out. Oh, by the way, this is a beautiful picture. I just love this. These three guys are sitting here looking. He's looking at her. He's looking at her. He's looking at her. Nobody's looking at this woman over here. I just thought that was interesting. This is Neil Armstrong's wife right here.
She doesn't look too happy.
None of them look very happy. And then if we go in and start looking at the body language of these guys, just go in at 24 minutes and watch some of that. Because it's Chase giving this stuff. Prior to that, they're doing the introduction. All of these four people believe that man has landed on the moon. Chase says, well, I'll be the devil's advocate. I will analyze it as if they think that they were faking it. Now, if you are an analyst doing what these guys do, and you're asked to look at the body language of somebody and tell honestly whether they're telling the truth or not, all of these four people already firmly believe that man has landed on the moon, so their analysis is completely prejudiced.
You're right.
But they openly say that. The three of them said, we're going to do it this way. And Chase jumps up and says, well, I'll take the other side. Well, there is no other side in an analysis. They're trying to determine whether they're telling the truth or not based on their body language. So the three guys are sitting there and they're going to explain the body language because they're professionals, that they're this, they're that, that's the way they normally operate. And Chase is going to sit in there and do it the other way. And here's his first little analysis, if you've just watched that at 24 minutes in.
You're all full of it.
Your face is full of it. What did you say to Greg? Your face is what? Your face is irrelevant.
Full of it.
Your face is irrelevant.
I think I'm going to call Mr. Aldrin on you.
Chase was not particularly devil's advocate. He was just arguing against some of the more prosaic details that the other guys were throwing out.
Right. He's just taking the other side. Like I said, there is no other side. They're doing this like it's a high school debate team where somebody has to take the other side and give the analysis.
See this pencil, how it lines up with the horizon perfectly?
Yes.
Yes. Not curving.
And he's making a joke, so he just discredits anything of his analysis at the same time.
It's interesting, isn't it, that this subject, the Apollo moon landing subject in general, is one of the very few subjects that anybody who challenges it is immediately dismissed as a conspiracy theorist, which is supposed to be a term of abuse connected with the Kennedy assassination, which was deliberately introduced by the CIA as a term of abuse. If you're a conspiracy theorist, you're obviously not thinking straight. So you're not allowed to do critical analysis of information readily available, which we can all see. It's about the only subject, widely known subject, at which critical analysis is not permitted. As we saw, they all agreed that it happened. Well, on what basis do they agree it happened?
Well, they haven't researched the topic, number one.
That's true. That's a good point.
They don't need to. Their profession is designed to take and analyze the body language to see if these people are telling the truth. But when you look at these guys, like, I wouldn't want to sit in a room with any of them, especially Scott Rouse in this one, because these are military people as well. If he was brought in, let's say you were accused of murder, and he came in to see if you were telling the truth, like you're sitting there saying, I'm innocent. This guy's analysis, the way he does this, he would find you guilty. And if you pulled out a birth certificate and said, I wasn't even born yet, this guy would double down and say you still did it, because that's the way he does the analysis on it. And if you watch while Chase is talking, when you go farther through the interview, I think he actually turns the sound off. He's little earbuds in there. He turns them off and he's fiddling around and doing something else because he really doesn't want to listen to what Chase is saying because he's taking the other side. I mean, if you look at their body language when Chase is talking, they're passing it off as a joke. And you can see that in their expression. I mean, Greg Hartley, you can't see anything in his body language. This guy is so good with his facial expressions or lack of. If you wanted to play hide and seek in a wax museum, you wouldn't be able to find him. I mean, he's right down to that. And when you listen to Mark Bowden, when Chase is talking, he makes a little comments. He says, like, I can almost believe you, when he's defending the fact that they're hoaxing it. But their entire analysis of this, and they're basing it on the fact that, oh, it's such a public event that these guys are this shy. But if you listen to them, it's always we were, or it appears to be. These people actually experienced it, but they're saying, oh, it's very much like a simulation.
I wonder if this is a simulation as well, because in the Apollo 15 PDF, we were looking through this, and I believe it's on page 50 or 54. I'm just going to read this. He says, would you look at that? Would you look at all the water? It's all over. I mean, that's water droplets. Not only the ones that are on the LM, but the whole outside of the spacecraft's covered with this crap. Let's see, this is what, day 5. How can they have water out there covering the entire craft?
Maybe it's at Flagstaff still. There was a heavy dew that morning and it hasn't evaporated yet.
Yeah.
If it was in space, the water wouldn't exist. I mean, what's going on?
It's in the transcript.
Well, the transcript must be correct because they've listened to every word that was said.
Exactly.
Having lost all the tapes, of course, that makes it a bit difficult to get it right. Maybe they didn't lose those ones.
Like I said, when you listen to these guys, when they're doing the analysis and they're so laid back and they're this and that, and they're very quiet and reserved. And because they have such skills as these highly skilled technicians that they can't explain themselves, so they're very reserved in what they're talking about. That's not true. These guys were in the media every day. They got used to being in the public eye. And if they actually did it, they'd be sitting there joking around on that stage exactly the same as they did when they were doing the simulations. Or if they actually went, when you see them joking around and all the hilarity and bouncing up and down, you see all the videos of them joking and laughing and doing everything else. If they can do that on the lunar surface when their life is in danger, this is a breeze to stand in front of a press conference.
And also the comments about the pre-flight press conference, where they appeared to be completely different, much more relaxed, joking, talking to each other, looking at each other, compared to the after the landing press conference, which is August the 11th, I believe, about 3 weeks after they landed. It's a common comment by anybody watching it saying they look so miserable. They look like they've been at a funeral or their cat's died.
Yeah, or somebody rolled a newspaper up and tapped them on the nose like you would your dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a comment here made by Judith McIntyre, 6361. She says, it's not a planet, Scott. As for the landings being faked, the USSR monitored the missions and accompanying transmissions, stating afterwards in Pravda that it was a great achievement. So now we're back to the Cold War. She's saying that, well, the Soviets would have blown the whistle is basically what she's getting at here. I don't think she realizes what the political climate was like back then. And it's the same old excuse. They have no idea what's really going on here. And there's no way the Russians would have blown the whistle because, like Randy said, they faked their own missions. Come on. They kept spying on each other. Both countries knew exactly what each other was doing. So what happens? The States blows a whistle on the Russians blow the whistle on the States, and nobody accomplishes anything out of this. So they're not going to do it.
And also, as we're seeing with the release of the Kennedy assassination documents, the CIA have been forced now to release 80,000 pages. This is 63 years after the event. And they have 80,000 pages, which were meant to be released 8 years earlier, and they're still keeping secrets. They're still redacting information.
Yeah, I know. I looked at it this morning. I went through that PDF there that they put online in March. They keep adding new documents to that PDF. Yeah, it's really interesting. But I don't think you're ever going to see the truth come out. They're not going to come out and plainly say it. They're going to say it in code, or they're going to say it in ways that they're not going to just say, yeah, we did it, guys. It's not going to happen. And it's the same with the moon landings. That's never going to happen. People think that Trump is going to just force them, whether they like it or not, to go back to the moon. Randy was saying that NASA has half the budget that they had back in those days, and they can't even get Artemis to the lunar surface with 3 people. They're still trying to do it. Why don't they go back and just rebuild the Saturn V's? And rebuild the F1 engines. I mean, Bezos did it, fished it out of the ocean and rebuilt it. It works. So why can't they do it? You know, it's just more excuses, just like it is for the NASA's funding. Where the proponents say, well, NASA, they don't have the money any longer like they used to do. No, but they still have half of that. And they still can't get there. They can't even get one ship there with humans on it. Never mind to the surface. Isn't it something how back in those days the Russians got their probes to the moon, didn't crash. NASA got their probes to the moon eventually, didn't crash after amount of time. They got Surveyor 1, 2, 3. Then after the Apollo missions were all over, 40 years later, the Russians tried to send another probe there, and guess what? It crashed. Look at today, for example. What, 2 probes they managed to so-called land, but they've been damaged. And yet, every probe they send today, they tip over. This is 2025 here now. Do you think that they would have worked that out back in the 60s? Never mind not being able to do it today. So this is what Randy was getting at. They did it all back then, no problem, but today they can't do it. Yeah. Something wrong.
They can't do it. It's interesting, looking at the comments under the body language video. I went through quite a lot. I mean, there are several hundred of them. The majority appeared to take the view that it never happened. They were saying, nobody landed on the moon. It was all faked. That's the general view of it, of people watching the body language. It seems to be a common factor now that when you put up something extolling the wonderfulness of Apollo and the integrity of NASA, most people disagree with it and say, no, never a straight answer. What do you expect from them? Not always scientifically accurate. Well, we know that's correct now, because they keep mixing up metric and imperial.
That's interesting in the documents when you read through. These are American companies that are putting that out, and everything's in centimeters. They never use those kind of measurements. How have these documents been altered?
And why are they being altered?
Because they're in feet and inches.
Yeah. I mean, surely America uses imperial measurements, which is feet and inches. It's not metric. America doesn't use metric. If they do, they get them confused. You'd think it would be one of the very first things that any space agency dealing with NASA would understand, that they have to have the measurements in imperial units, feet, inches, yards, miles, pounds per square inch, all that sort of stuff.
When you were talking about some of the comments underneath that video, this is interesting because there's a person here called Stephanie Carlson, and this is what she says. There is a telephone call to Nixon that had no delay on a landline. Get out of here. You should all be ashamed of lying to the public.
Yeah, because of course there would be a delay. If they were really on the moon, it'd be a 2.5 second delay between speaking and hearing the answer. That's science. It's nothing beyond that. It's the speed of light, speed of radio waves. You know, Nixon, when he's doing his talk, It seemed like the guys are in the next room. They probably were. Hence Capricorn 1.
Yeah.
They were in the next room.
What happened if that rocket would have blew up on the launch pad? You know what that would mean? That would mean that Neil, Buzz, and Michael Collins would all have to vanish. It really would be a Capricorn 1. They'd be taken out and shot and disposed of in the desert because they couldn't show their faces in public if that blew up. So
obviously they wouldn't have Telly Savalas to rescue them, would they?
Right.
I mean, just to go back to the idea that the press conference, they were unused to speaking to crowds, which the world's press was there. They weren't unused to speaking to crowds. They've been doing it for years. I think there are 4 of them still alive now, 4 of the moonwalkers. I mean, Aldrin is 93, 94 on his 3rd wife. I think Dave Scott was another one who's still alive, Apollo 15.
Yeah, and Harrison Smith is still alive.
Yeah, Harrison Smith, he's still alive. Must be all the rocks.
Yeah, there's 6 of them. Buzz Aldrin, Dave Scott, Charlie Duke, Harrison Schmitt, James Lovell, and Fred Hayes. Now, Buzz is 95, Dave Scott's 92, Charlie Duke is 89, Harrison Schmitt 89, James Lovell 97, and Fred Hayes 91. That is from 2025.
Yeah, maybe it's all that moon dust they inhaled. It keeps you alive.
Well, I mean, it couldn't be the radiation belts because apparently they went through them and back. Perhaps that's a cure for cancer, going through there or staying in there for a few hours, and then coming back and staying in there for a few more hours. Maybe that cures cancer.
Yeah, obviously it does, except 6 of them have died. I think it was Jim Irwin who was supposed to be contacting Bill Casing. He was killed in a motorbike accident, which nobody observed. He ran off the road, which is unusual for an experienced motorbike rider.
Well, if he was going to talk to Bill Casing, then guess what? It makes sense because everybody else that tried to expose the Apollo missions were killed.
Far too sensitive. I mean, Bart Sibrel's description of how he managed to escape being killed in the psychiatric hospital, I think is indicative of the lengths to which they will go to keep this secret.
Yeah, just push them out of windows.
Yeah, push them out the window.
Maybe the windows are a little slippery if there's that much water on them.
Strange that, water on the moon,
Yeah, I just think people need to know these people on the behavior panel already have their minds set. They don't do any research into it, and they use their analysis to prove their point that they landed on the moon. They're normalizing all of the body language that they're looking at.
Yeah, but they're supposed to go into this unbiased. Can you imagine if you were sent to extract information from somebody, you have to go in there with a neutral mind, or if you're a judge. I mean, these guys are already condemning everything without even looking at it.
They have different parts of their field where they're trying to get information from it, like if they're double agents or whatever, like that kind of stuff. But the rest of their analysis, when they do Ted Bundy, they know he committed the crime. They're not disputing that. So then they just attach the body language to it through the interviews. They're not trying to assess his innocence or guilt. Well, they're doing exactly the same thing here. They're already saying that we're a bunch of conspiracy theorists and it's just a hoax, and they're just making fun of that the whole time through. When Chase says, I'll take the other side. Well, that's not what they're there to do. If they're going to analyze it, I'll take the other side. So when I look at the body language, I see this. But when he starts out, it's like he leans right forward to the camera and he goes, okay, boys and girls, it's story time. That's his body language. That's what I see when I analyze his body language. And the rest of them just make light of it. And then Mark Bowden goes, oh, you almost had me believing that for a second. And then they all have a good laugh.
Of course. Because if any of them started to dispute Apollo, as we have done, they would not have a career left. They would be ostracized because they challenged one of America's great shibboleths, standard operating procedure.
They're very good at what they do, picking up the little automatic responses, facial expressions, everything else. They're really good at what they're doing when they're doing that. No discredit. It's how they decide what that means in this particular case. They're not doing it with an open mind. They already have their mind made up on what they're doing. They're trying to discredit us when they're doing that stuff. But when I look at their body language, when Chase is speaking, because he's taking the other side, you watch their expressions on what they're doing, because they either turn away, they don't want to hear it because it doesn't mean anything to them, because he's just telling a story. One of them say, oh, gee, you almost got me to believe it. And the other guy's sitting there. I mean, like I said, Greg Hartley, I mean, when he puts on his face, he'd be just terrifying to have into an interview room, that boy, because that's, like I said, he could hide in a wax museum. Nobody'd be able to find him. Because he doesn't have any expressions. He even comments about Botox and stuff. You know, like that gets rid of all your facial expressions if you numb your face with Botox. I mean, no discredit to anything that these guys do. It's fantastic. Their ability to pick up the most subtle, most basic automatic responses that the body's going to do when they're presented with a particular thing. But they're not doing it here.
No, they're not.
Even the average person can see the difference.
You know, this is another interesting thing here was this PDF that Not a Space Agency sent this morning. It's called Managing Space Radiation Risk in the New Era of Space Exploration. And they're going on here, and then they're talking about this space shuttle mission. My introduction to space radiation came firsthand as a crew member on board the Space Shuttle Challenger in April 1984. What the heck was that? I blurted out after seeing what looked like a white laser passing quickly through my eyes. Oh, that's just cosmic rays, said Pinky Nelson. Now, isn't this funny? Cosmic rays, and he sees this little thing shooting. Well, that's funny, is because Bart Sabrell asked Alan Bean about the same thing, and he didn't remember anything till he was reminded, but this guy seems to have no problem recalling it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And this was in 1984. But again, they're doing the same thing. They're still reviewing radiation. They're still doing tests. Why? It's supposed to have been done and dusted back in 1960. Actually, even earlier than that, if you think about it, because Van Allen did it in the 50s.
Yeah, 58 he did it.
Shielding approaches and capabilities.
Dear, oh dear.
Well, if they had all of that equipment in the 1960s and it worked, and that's everything, spacesuits everywhere else, why are they spending billions of dollars on any of this equipment if it already works so well? Literally, why do you keep researching radiation? Shouldn't you have that figured out?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be able to figure out vacuum, the heat shields, and everything?
They haven't got the heat shield working yet, have they? Artemis 2 almost destroyed itself because the heat shield.
That's right. And when you look at the actual data on the return, they're actually coming back to the Earth in what they're showing. They're coming back 10 hours faster. They're coming back faster. They're entering faster than they left. And every time you increase that speed, you're increasing the friction and you're increasing the heat that those shields have to protect it from.
Yeah, because coming back from the moon, you're coming back at 25,000 miles an hour, which is 30% higher than if you're coming back from Earth orbit.
But it's even faster than that because it came back 10 hours quicker than they went to the moon. It's 10 hours faster coming back. So they could be doing 27 or 8,000 miles an hour.
Which is 50% more energy to dissipate.
Exactly.
And they've only got 1,000 miles to do it in. And you've got to get the angle of entry correct as well, 6 degrees angle of entry. You've got to get that correct, because if you get too steep, you burn up. If you get too shallow, you go off into orbit around the sun.
And then, of course, if you look at any of the documentation for re-entry, they dump all of their fuel tanks, all of their oxygen, everything is dispensed because of the heat. So if you bounced off, you don't have any fuel to correct it and come back again because you've already dumped your fuel. And then we go back to the early 60s where Russia just came back in with the soil sample from the moon, right? How? No heat shields, no nothing, no guidance computers, nothing. It just happened.
That was really strange, wasn't it, when we took a look at that PDF? Because there is no heat shield on that can when it's coming through the atmosphere.
Nope, nothing.
Dear, oh dear. Dear, oh dear. Dear, oh dear.